September 1967. A woman hangs herself in a German prison cell. There is no struggle, no dramatic note, no last-minute rescue, only a body discovered too late, suspended by torn bed sheets tied carefully to a heating pipe. Her name is Ilse Koch. To history, she is remembered as the Witch of Buchenwald, a woman accused of cruelty so extreme that even decades later, her name provokes revulsion. But before she dies, she writes one final letter. Not to the daughter who testified against her. Not to the son who publicly rejected her and later ended his own life. She writes to Uwe, the child she gave birth to in prison. The child taken from her at birth. The child who would spend his adult life trying to prove that his mother was innocent. This is not the story of Ilse Koch's crimes. This is the story of what happened to her children, and how growing up in the shadow of one of history's most infamous women destroyed them in different, quieter ways. To understand the children, you must first understand where they lived. Ilse Koch and her husband, Karl-Otto Koch, commandant of the Buchenwald concentration camp, lived in a comfortable villa just outside the camp's perimeter. This was not symbolic proximity. It was literal. From their windows, barbed wire was visible. From their garden, smoke from the crematorium drifted into the air. From their dining table, the screams of prisoners could sometimes be heard. Inside the villa, life was disturbingly ordinary. The children, Artwin, Gisela, and Gudrun, played in the garden. They swam in a private pool. They celebrated birthdays and holidays. Outside the gates, tens of thousands were worked, beaten, starved, and killed. Ilse Koch rode horses past prisoner work details, holding a riding crop. Prisoners wore striped uniforms. Her children wore clean clothes and laughed. This was their childhood, a domestic life built beside industrialized death. Gudrun, the youngest, died in infancy in 1941. She never grew old enough to remember the camp, but Artwin and Gisela did. They learned silently that cruelty could be normalized, that power insulated you from consequences, that suffering could be ignored if it benefited you, that knowledge does not disappear when childhood ends. Karl-Otto Koch did not live to see Allied forces arrive. In April 1945, with American troops approaching, the SS arrested their own camp commandant. Not for mass murder, not for overseeing countless deaths, but for corruption. Karl-Otto Koch had stolen from the Nazi state. Worse, he eliminated witnesses, killing prisoners and even SS personnel who knew about his theft. The regime that tolerated genocide could not tolerate disloyalty. On April 5, 1945, just 1 week before Buchenwald was liberated, Karl-Otto Koch was executed by an SS firing squad. According to witnesses, his final words were disturbingly casual. "Boys shoot well." His body was cremated in the same ovens used for prisoners. The children lost their father not to justice but to internal Nazi discipline. And their mother was left alone, exposed, and soon to be judged by the world. Ilse Koch was arrested in June 1945 after a former prisoner recognized her in a German town. Her trial began in 1947. Survivors testified about her cruelty, her arbitrary punishments, and her enjoyment of power. Though some of the most extreme accusations were debated, her reputation as a sadistic figure was already sealed. She was sentenced to life imprisonment. Then came the decision that shocked the world. American General Lucius Clay reduced her sentence to 4 years, citing insufficient evidence for life imprisonment. The public reaction was explosive. Veterans protested. Newspapers condemned the decision. Songs were written mocking the injustice. But outrage intensified for another reason. Ilse Koch was pregnant. She had conceived a child while imprisoned. The father was never officially identified. To many, this felt like one final insult, a symbol of impunity. Under enormous pressure, West Germany immediately rearrested her upon release from American custody and retried her in a German court. This time, she was sentenced again to life imprisonment. But the damage was done. Her children were now marked forever. In October 1947, Uwe Koch was born inside Landsberg prison. the same prison where Adolf Hitler had once written Mein Kampf. Within hours of birth, he was taken from his mother. He was placed with a foster family. He was given a new surname. His origins were erased. Uwe grew up unaware of who his mother was. No camp, no trial, no scandal. He lived a quiet, ordinary childhood. Meanwhile, his siblings carried memories. And that difference would shape everything. Uwe Koch, rejection. Uwe remembered Buchenwald. He remembered the villa, the privileges, the contrast. As an adult, he publicly condemned his mother. He gave interviews, including one to the BBC, describing his shame and moral rejection of her actions. But rejection did not bring peace. Trauma does not dissolve through condemnation. In 1964, at just 26 years old, Uwe Koch committed suicide. Public rejection was not enough to escape the past. Gisela took a different path. At 16, she testified against her own mother in court, an act that required extraordinary emotional distance. Afterward, she disappeared. She changed her name. She built a professional career. She integrated into respectable society. Her obituary would never mention Buchenwald. Gisela survived by erasing her past entirely. But erasure comes at a cost. Isolation. Uwe met his mother not as a child, but as a prisoner. When he learned the truth about his origins at 19, he was devastated. Ilse told him she was innocent, that she was a victim of political persecution, that history had lied. And Uwe believed her. After her suicide, he dedicated his life to clearing her name. He wrote letters. He confronted historians. He fought against overwhelming evidence. Many scholars later described him as Ilse Koch's final victim. He did not inherit her crimes, but he inherited her narrative. Ilse Koch never accepted responsibility for what she had done. Even after conviction, even after imprisonment, she clung to a version of herself as a victim of circumstance rather than a perpetrator of cruelty. When she wrote from her cell, she did not reach out to the children who rejected her name, her memory, and her blood. She did not write to those who tried to sever themselves from her legacy in order to survive. She wrote only to the one who believed. Her final letter was not an apology. It was a performance. She portrayed herself as misunderstood, betrayed by the system, and persecuted by history. She recast her crimes as exaggerations, her punishment as injustice, and herself as a woman wronged rather than a woman responsible. Even at the end of her life, she was still shaping the story, still exerting control, still manipulating perception. And that manipulation did not die with her. Ilse Koch's story did not end in a prison cell or with her suicide. It continued quietly, destructively, inside the lives of her children. The damage spread forward, not backward. One child rejected her completely, refusing her letters, her explanations, her version of events, and died young, burdened by the weight of a name that could never be cleansed. Another erased her from memory, disappearing into obscurity, attempting to escape history by refusing to engage with it at all. A third defended her, absorbing her narrative, living in denial, carrying forward her self-justifying myth as a shield against unbearable truth. None of them escaped unscarred. History often tells its stories cleanly. It ends them at trials, verdicts, executions, and dates carved into stone. But justice does not seal consequences shut. The real aftermath seeps into families, into children, into lives that must carry the weight of crimes they did not commit and can never undo. Guilt may not be hereditary, but trauma is, silence is, distortion is. The legacy of the Witch of Buchenwald was not only the suffering she inflicted on her victims. It was what she left behind. It was inheritance. And inheritance, especially one built on denial, manipulation, and unresolved horror, can be just as destructive as the crimes themselves.